Guys, thanks for stopping by. I want to try something a little different. Other photographers have done this before. This is nothing mind blowing, but the weather has just been absolute trash here. It's raining sideways and all this stuff. So I thought I'd still try something a little new for me, since there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to record around the island. So I wanted to talk about some of my favorite photos here. So this is one I took last September, and this is going to be a little bit of a mix between underwater and some of my bear photos. But this was a young bear that we had followed in the river here, just outside of town. And the thing about bears that I'm noticing is, unless you're in somewhere like Katmai or Lake Clark, where there's a little bit more open space, it's really hard to get these bears kind of out of the brush. And this bear had kind of worked his way down the river because he's not dominant compared to especially the big mama bear that we had a few encounters with last year. But he really kind of avoided the whole crowd of fishermen and everything. So this bear was foraging along a beach, and it was really cool to watch just them and their habitat, right? But this is a shot I would not have been able to have nailed even 2 years ago. I've been doing a lot of learning, networking with people, and the key to this shot was really just exposing for the bear. And each bear is going to have different colors. Some of them are blonde, some of them are really dark chocolate colors. So your exposure settings are going to vary. But I've automated a lot of my exposure settings when I'm on land versus in the water. I have different settings set on my camera. This was with the R5 and a very old 500mm f4, the EF version, which it still gets the job done. I'm very happy with the results here. So this bear was crossing just a little bit of the river, and it's not very deep. He just was kind of wading through, and I took a few photos here, but the one that I chose to edit, I really like this because he had turned his head to, I don't even know what he was looking at, maybe a plane coming in, and it really gave the photo a different feel than if it was just a side profile. And this is a really great use of negative space, and I'm very happy with it. And it's not something you get to do very often with these guys, unless maybe they're clamming out on the sand flats and you've got like a 400 2.8 or something. You could really blur out the background. As always in Alaska, I'm always hoping for that beautiful like sunrise or sunset, but at least on Kodiak, it's really hard to get those beautiful colors all the time. Not that it's not beautiful here, but you just got to shoot for your conditions, So I'm happy with this. This is something I could see on my wall someday. It's one of my other photos here. This is actually from Australia. This was in February. My wife and I went and did the great white shark sea lion tours. And these are, I always like photographing endangered species, and they are endangered in Australia. But seals, sea lions, they tend to be very playful in the water, and I really like this photo because it showed the kind of the playfulness of them. And I like the number of sea lions that I captured here. Sometimes only one would come up to us. This is a nice trio, and I know the one in the top, his eyes are kind of closed, but the one in the middle, I really love its expression and kind of him checking me out. This was with my Canon R5 in the Isota underwater housing with a big 8-inch dome. And I think it was also, they were looking at their reflection in the camera, so that was really cool. They were a lot of fun. Molly, my wife, she was doing somersaults in the water, and they would start to play. But as soon as you sat still, they just would get bored, and then they would leave. So it was really kind of an interesting experience versus like with the sharks. You don't want to be flailing about, You want to be very still in the water. So that was really cool. This was just I exposed to the right 2/3. I didn't do anything fancy. I can look at my settings. I believe this was like an f6, somewhere in there, with my wide angle. Or actually, no, I usually shoot f11 when I do that. So it's probably around f11 with my 16 to 35 EF lens. This photo is also from Australia. I do have some underwater Alaska photos that I'll show you guys too. This is from the Great Barrier Reef, and this is their like hard coral. This is not the staghorn. I have to look up the species of this, but I was obsessed with just the textures of the reef. Alaska's cool. We get kelp and barnacles, and there's some really cool rocks. But the hard corals of the Great Barrier Reef were just unreal. And I like the color version of this, but I felt that, especially since I've shot with film before, that the black and white here served its job really well. I could also see this being on somebody's wall someday too. There are just so many intricacies with the texture here. If I could zoom in, and I'm happy with this too because it's also shot on my R5. So with that 45 megapixel sensor, it really kept all the detail. I moved a little bit, and the focus point was kind of up here, but oops, that's too far. But you could see how, blown up, that would still look really nice, right? So I was very happy with that. This was actually shot with my underwater macro lens is a Sigma 50 millimeter. I believe it's a 1.4, but I think it's a 1.8. I don't remember. But so far, really happy with the results of that lens. I can't wait to put it through its paces in Alaska. Oh, and this was a highlight of the trip for us. I told Molly that if we found any anemone fish at all, we're always looking for, Nemo, right? But if we found any anemone fish at all, I really wanted to spend time with them. I do have a degree in marine biology, so, living in Rhode Island at the time, you read about all these exotic fish, and you just could not wait to see them. So this was kind of like a bucket list item for me. Now, something that I did that I don't know if other people do this too, but these guys are really hard to expose for because it's really easy to blow out the bar here on this anemone fish. So it was a little overblown in the original photo, but I just calmed down the highlights, and I thought that was kind of nice. And then I like the texture here of the anemone. They're quite a nervous fish, so I had to be very slow, very patient. I was very happy with my buoyancy on that dive. Always kind of taking mental notes of your trim and everything. And I was able to really just sit there and just kind of watch the fish. Again, this was with the 50 millimeter. If I could do this shot again, I wish we had more time on this reef. I would have really loved to have used my snoot on this shot, and I think that really would have made this shot a little bit more dramatic, because you get a little bit too much of the background for my liking. It's not always a bad thing, but I still think it's a good shot overall. And then I did play with different, this was shot I think around f8 or f10. I do have a few like 2.8, 3.2 in the collection too. But this was just really a fun shooting scenario for me. It was a lot of fun, and I'm really happy with the Inon strobes and how they performed here. I know one day it'd be nice to have the retras, but I'm happy with the size of the Inons and how they perform. And then, this is a Alaska photo. This is a sculpin. This guy was only about, a few inches. He wasn't very big. One night, Molly and I went tide pooling. Luckily, we live across from the ocean here, and in Kodiak, and I brought my camera, and this was a snooted shot. You could see the kind of circle there, but I'm really happy with this shot because I was able to really get the. Oops, sorry, my mouse did that too much, but I was able to get the eyes in focus, and then some of the details here, just above the eyes. So it was a really cool little shot. He was sitting still, hoping that I wouldn't see him. I had to check my settings again. I went for a kind of a shallower depth of field here to kind of blur out some of the confusing background, because even with the snoot, sometimes you get some unwanted stuff, or I think unwanted. And then after talking to a lot of other photographers, it's, do you get rid of the backscatter or do you leave the backscatter? So lately, I've been trying to leave the backscatter as long as it's not too excessive, because sometimes it could actually leave some really interesting results, which I might actually just jump ahead to this one. After my trip to Valdez, I gained a really big appreciation for nudibranchs. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really know anything about nudibranchs until this photo, along with a few other nudibranch photos, were published in Alaska Magazine. So I'm really happy about that. This was a surprise though, because I was getting ready for Australia. I was practicing with my, at the time, the Isotta housing is new for me. So I was getting all my settings down, dials dialed in. I have a really nice program on the R5 to program for underwater stuff. And I look down and I see two nudibranchs as soon as I get in the water. And I was blown away. I was really excited. And this guy was actually on the kelp. And I did not have a snoot at the time. I think this was just the Inon strobe. And this is where I did play with just doing a very minimalistic, like, black background with no backscatter. But then, thinking about it, life's not always that clean, and especially the waters of Alaska are very, very productive. So there's a lot of stuff in the water. And I thought actually it was more appropriate just to kind of leave the backscatter alone. And I kind of like it. It looks like a snowy scene, but it's also kind of true to its environment. And this nudibranch, it was almost like it was trying to reach out and kind of look for the next place for it to go. But this is an example where I actually kind of like the backscatter. Some of you may disagree. But I kind of played with both, just keeping it a pure black background. But then I felt like I was doing too much editing. And, this was kind of an odd specimen. It's not the prettiest. This is the orange and white tip nudibranch. Oops, I did the wrong one. You guys don't want to see me. And I don't know what happened if he's just going through a different, not developmental stage. Sometimes with food availability, stuff like that, I think there are little extensions here will change size, but they're rather small, so I thought that was kind of interesting. They weren't as developed as the other ones that I've seen. They usually look like a little balloon, so that was kind of disappointing, but kind of shows you the variability. But if you're a nudibranch expert, feel free to chime in. This shot I was very happy with. I do wish, again, that I had used a snoot. But this was also, we were on a reef called the Labyrinth, and we only did 2 dives there. And I told the dive captain that next time I want to do all my dives there, because that reef head I could have spent the entire week there. But these little damselfish were darting in and out of the hard coral. That's one of the, in Alaska too, we do have reefs, just not pretty, like stereotypical ones like you think of Great Barrier Reef, but these ecosystems serve as protection for all these different types of fish. So this damselfish, I have to get the ID later on for you guys, but they would just dart into the reef as soon as you swim by, right? They think they're going to get eaten. So I was actually kind of hoping to get just the head and just the fish peeking out through the coral, and this is as close as I could get for the time that we had on the reef. But I'm pretty happy with it, because if you look at the color of the damselfish, they really are the species that, like, kind of bluish green, little turquoise, and then that coral really is that orange. So when I wrote a blog about color theory, right? This was kind of a really nice natural example of using those complementary colors. So I was pretty happy to capture that on film, so to speak. And then this is an old one, but it's one of my favorite photos I've ever taken. This is he's an Instagram famous alligator. His name is Casper. And if you go to the Everglades Outpost in Florida, It's just outside of Everglades National Park. It's a little like they've rehabbed and they've rescued like cougars, and they have a crocodile, all this stuff. But this was the last tour in which you could actually swim in the water with Casper. So this is one reason why it's one of my favorite shots. It was actually taken with my old Canon 70D in an Ike Light housing, which it's gotten me a lot of great photos, but I really like the ergonomics of the Isotta housings better. This was taken with two Ike Light DS161s. Or actually, knowing me, one of them was a 125, the other one was a 161. But Chris Gillette, he had positioned Casper to swim over you if you wanted. And I had just lined up the sunburst because I actually took this shot blind because I didn't have my 45-degree eyepiece like I do on my Isotta housing. So actually, this shot was a little bit of luck too. But I'm really happy with how this came out. I need to enter this one into other photo contests. It's just sometimes the rules, with he's technically a captive gator. A lot of these alligators were nuisance alligators, are more dangerous than the wild ones. But FWC came in and they made Chris change how he does the gator tours, even though they never had an issue, no accidents of any kind. But anyway, I just love the sun rays coming through and kind of the texture of the alligator here. It was just a really great moment with a really cool alligator. So these are some of my favorite photos that just kind of came to mind that I thought I'd share with you. And I'd like to do more of these in the future, but I want to be a little more organized with the theme. These are the Northern Lights that we had just a few weeks ago here. And, feel free to message me with any recommendations, but I want to be a little more active here. So thanks for stopping by, and I hope you enjoyed.